listening as closely as I can to his words and music, to glean what they mean, to wonder what they teach and inspire, and to linger with the riddles and questions embedded within them. As with any set of sacred texts, the art of shaping meaning out of Dylan's canon will require a holistic approach. I take into account the musical and cultural realities that define his era, the history and sociology of religion, and the creative techniques upon which Dylan calls. The result is a guide to Bob Dylan's spiritual wisdom that also reflects upon the possibilities of our own. Here is how the book plays out more specifically. After charting a map of traditions for seeking salvation and living a life of faith prior to Dylan in chapters 1 and 2, I will focus on each of the 3 key words Dylan calls out in that verse harvested on Maggie's farm. In chapters 3, 4, and 5, man opens pathways to salvation through love, the teacher, and death. Framing these terms precisely, man and God and law, is essential for making the best, clearest use of them. This is true of the word man more than any of the 3. When I refer to man in context of this passage, I mean human beings, not just males. So it goes with many of sacred texts I most admire. While they speak words of spiritual truth, they often employ language, style, or intent quite different from my own. This is particularly true when it comes to gender, about which the sensibilities of great sages and artists, including Dylan, can be downright offensive to people affirming feminism and gender justice, which I unequivocally do. There is more about the challenges of gender, sacred text, and rock and roll next and throughout the book. Chapters 6 and 7 consider God as memory and America, 2 landscapes, text and context respectively, where Dylan's journeys of salvation take place. I look at law in Chapter 8, considering through the lens of Dylan's work the systems people can choose to rely upon, abandon, or construct to codify lives of meaning. About man and God and law concludes with Chapter 9, thoughts about where Bob Dylan's musical, spiritual, and intellectual legacy might lead. There are a few more things you need to know before we begin. First, have your preferred listening device for music available as you go through this book. To enjoy this book best is to hear it embedded in the songs described by the words in the book. There is also the matter of the teller of the tale. That's me. After more than 3 decades of making music, of thinking and writing and teaching about it, my testimony for all things musical paraphrases what Bob Dylan once said about freedom of speech. Without music, I'd be in the swamp. In other words, I am a music lover, just like you, and immersing myself in music, especially the music of Bob Dylan, is a joyous, transformative, comforting, and inspiring spiritual experience by every measure. I hope you will find some of that soulful magic in this book. I'm also a white male, like so many of the writers and critics who have prophesied with their pens and tried to explain popular music while feeding its myths. In addition to being a scholar of music and religion, born to and living in the Jewish faith, I have my own notions of text and context to sift through to get to truths in Dylan's work that we can learn from together. Certain gifts and burdens color my sensibility and set my limitations. Some are advantageous, some are privileged, and some produce blind spots others will need to illuminate. Writing about popular music often means getting tangled up in cultural appropriation and white or male-centric thinking that must be cut through. These are sensitive topics in our day, and rightly so. On the one hand, I am still naive enough to believe that great music has enough